Okay, so now the recording starts. I welcome everyone to our webinar with the Rebels Against War Anita Augspurg Prize winners. Thank you all so much for coming. My name is Johanna Braun. I am the co-president of the German section of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. And we are very excited to host this meeting with you all today. We are especially happy to talk to the winners of the Rebels Against War Award, Olena, Efi, Rasha, Gulnara, and Zaina again. Thank you all so much for taking the time to meeting us again, updating us on your work for peace and justice. We cannot wait to hear from you today. Before we start with our questions to you five, I would like to say a few words about WILPF and the history of the prize. So WILPF is one of the oldest feminist peace organizations worldwide. It was founded in 1915 in The Hague. One of the most prominent figures in WILPF's history, as many of you probably know, is Anita Augspurg, who grew up in Verden, in a northern German city, and lived most of her life in Munich, where our section also has a really long history. Anita Augspurg broke with all conventions of her time. She rebelled against patriarchal norms and also against militarism. Her life was shaped by 2 world wars and her activism against it. To honor Anita Augspurg and her legacy, the German section of WILPF established the Rebels Against War Anita Augspurg Prize. In Anita Augsburg's name, we honor with it activists who stand up for feminist peace, for justice, and for freedom. As the 5 activists in this room with us today, or some of them who are in this room with us today. The prize is awarded every 2 years and was given to 5 feminist peace activists already. And we do this in collaboration with the city of Verden, where the ceremony takes place. The winners of the prize receive a prize money of 5,000 euros to strengthen their work for peace and justice. And today, for the first time, we bring all the 5 winners together to talk about their work and their struggles. Before we start, I want to give a special thanks to Heidi Meinsold for making this webinar possible, for organizing this, and bringing all the winners together in this room. Without you, it would not be possible today. And thanks a lot as well to all the laudators who will introduce the winners to you and lead us through this evening as well. But for now, I will give the word to Heidi.
Thank you, Johanna. And I think the warm welcome is really an important point in a time where we are confronted with so many disasters, with hate, racism, environmental degradation, militarization, genocide, war. And it's so important that there are still voices of women who raise their voices against these disasters and not give us the feeling of we are just helpless and we have to give up. No, we don't give up. And your strength of these 5 women and many more, all probably who are here following this debate, they allow us to stay with some optimism that we can make a change. And this is really a great pleasure. And I would love to give the floor now to Barbara for the first discussion and exchange with Zaina. And Barbara made the laudatio many years ago. And so please, Babsi, go on. And Zaina, welcome.
So thank you, Heidi. I hope you can hear me. My name is Barbara Lochbiller. I live in Berlin. And in 2017, I had the honor to have the laudatio on Saina Erheim. It was in 2017, completely different time. Saina is from Idlib, from Syria. It was a war situation. The revolution in Syria was stopping. The Arab transformation, the Arab Spring processes in most of the countries ended up in terrible situations and in a very tough war in Syria. And there were no signs at that time for progress with peace negotiations in Syria. So we were also looking to find peace activists from Syria, and we found Saina as a filmmaker and a journalist, teaching women on the local and regional level to report and to tell stories about the reality living in the war of a lot of women in Syria. And by doing this, not losing also the hope and the demand to find peaceful and political solutions to this war. So, it was also not so easy because, Saina, I did not know anything about you. Then what a colleague of mine who was working with Amnesty long ago said, oh, she might be good for you because she has kind of not a traditional women's agenda to be nice and calm and avoiding conflict, but also going against militarist and patriarchal structures. So, and then when we met in Verden, I was more than pleased. And so I tried always to find some similarities between Anita Augspurg and you, but of course there were very different times. But I think in being bright and very vocal and how can I say, communicate very well, you both have in common. Now I'm asked also to pose some questions. And I think for you, I think amongst the prize winners so far, you come from a country, the only country, who had a fundamental change compared to the time when you received the prize. So Assad is gone. Nobody has thought, actually, that this will happen. It's a reality. And it would be very, very interesting to hear, of course, what you are doing now and also how the prize perhaps has supported you or helped you to do your peace work. But also it would be very interesting to hear from you how you look at the new government in Syria, the progress made in structuring and building the country again. And perhaps if you could also tell us, as we from WILPF, we are from several sections. I see Annalisa from Italy, but maybe others. Also our international women's and anti-war movement, WILPF. If we could do something and to support the Syrian people. So I think these were the most questions I think I have. I hope I didn't forget something to say what was then in 2017, what you did, and what is the situation now. And beside talking about Syria, of course, I did not want to make this small. Please tell us also what you are doing currently. Thank you.
Okay, please cut me if I go long because the questions that you've asked need a whole book to be
Yes.
answered properly. So let me know when I need to stop. I will start chronologically because I mean, not just the country has changed. I mean, I feel we're speaking about a different life and a different person. At that time in 2017, I became an exiled journalist for the first time in my life. So I had to flee, and I was displaced first in Turkey, and then I ended up in the UK. And I was, as you were mentioning, I was one of those losing hope in being able to go back or in making change. And one of the things that I found my strength back into is working with women journalists in different countries. So I professionally immigrated to Iraq. So I've been working on Iraq with a specific focus on gender and media and women journalists for the last 9 years. And funny enough, I mean, if you say Iraq saved me from going crazy, everyone would be surprised. But I think the women journalist of Iraq did, because at that time I wasn't able to communicate. I wasn't able to even digest what was happening in Syria and that we lost it. So I kind of closed the door on Syria and I ran away to Iraq. I also worked on Yemen, Palestine, Morocco for a while. But my main focus was what the women journalists were doing in conflict areas and in Palestine. And despite not having the right passport to do so, because I was a refugee, I was managing between doing things online and getting visas to third countries to do the work. So that was going until last year, until 8th of December last year, when the regime fell. And suddenly, after completely 9 years of being absent from the Syrian scene, I did go back again, and I've already been there 4 times this year. So like literally every 2 months, I'm spending at least 2 weeks there. I co-founded Women Journalist Alliance with two colleagues, an exiled Egyptian journalist and an Iraqi journalist, and we just launched the coalition physically in Damascus 10 days ago. It is called the Women Journalist Alliance. And what we're working on mainly is peer-to-peer learning support, mentorship, sharing opportunities. We're literally trying to be there for each other as the spaces for women in general and journalists in specific are shrinking. Even before the new government, it was very difficult for women to be visible and there in public sphere. And now it's becoming even harder. And not just in Syria, sadly, we're seeing the attacks even on women TikTokers in Egypt. We're seeing in Iraq where the word gender is being criminalized and the word even media development or media empowerment is also criminalized. So in the alliance, we even had to self-censor ourselves in the About Us page, because our colleagues in Iraq would have been imprisoned if we said what we actually do, which is sisterhood and feminism activism. So we had to censor ourselves, and we wrote on the website, this is not who we fully are, but we're self-censoring ourselves for the sake of the security of our Iraqi colleagues. And I mean, now even in Tunis today, another women organization, Women for Democracy, is being shut down. So the whole scene in the region is crisis, a genocide going on and everything else. So the least that we could do is just being there for each other, especially with the recent events and the war on Gaza. Many of us were very disappointed by international organization and the kind of stance that they took and the way that they kind of punished us for taking a stand against the genocide. So being with each other and the solidarity campaign among those women and activists in the region was really the only thing that we could do. And I believe it is the thing that we should do to be able to stand together and to stay sane on the first level, but also to stay in the scene and to be able to fight back against like the hypocrisy of the Western authorities, against the capitalism that is eating us all, against patriarchy that is combining all its efforts with censorship, with authoritarian regimes, with militias that are spreading around. And you asked me about Syria. I will very quickly mention that. There is obviously change, but chaos is still, I mean, especially in terms of arms spread, it is still pretty much present. And I mean, for me, I do get scared of chaotic armed men more than the kind of organized militia which take order from one person that you can actually speak with. But if some person just didn't like what I posted or didn't like something I do, it is very easy for me to be kidnapped or killed, and they will get away with it because there is no accountability system currently. This was the case in 2016 when I was living in the rebel-held area. And I think now it's a bit easier because it's widespread. We were pretty much focused and seized in one area. Now it's widely spread across Syria. But this is what scares me the most. So even when we were launching the Women Journalist Alliance, I didn't do it publicly. I invited people privately for the sake of myself and also the women journalists who I invited to the panel and invited to attend. This is the last thing I'm going to be saying, but the panel that we did, I think it was one of the miracles that I would never thought I would do or speak about. So the panel was what it means to be a Syrian woman and a journalist after the fall of the regime. And I had 4 speakers, one Kurdish who was coming from Qamishli in Northeast, and one Durzi who is from El Sueda, which was recently attacked by pro-government's armed men. And the other was from Northeast, she was from Aleppo. And each of them was speaking about the intersectionality between her sect, the way that she looks, her work, and being a journalist, and how that kind of increased the amount of pressure and differentiate the kind of attacks that she gets. And moderating such a session in Damascus was not just a dream. For me, that was a miracle. And hearing the women being able to voice their challenges and speak about this intersectionality publicly, I think this is change for me. This is what I'm keep doing as much as I can. I hope I answered all your question, Barbara.
Yes, you did, and more than this. So congratulations that you are networking in this, very troubled area. And I do hope, actually, that WILPF International, that acted a lot with different statements and also inside the UN on Gaza and the genocide in Gaza, didn't disappoint you. And also, we had a change in the leadership in Geneva. So actually, I do not even know if the Secretary General is working out of Geneva. But I think if you think it's useful for you, please do use the office in New York and in Geneva when there are discussions in the Security Council on Syria and also in the Human Rights Council in Geneva on Syria or Iraq or Palestine. I think the WILPF stuff still, of course, everybody is in, this war all over the place. War became the normal now. It's not how we discussed it in 2017, but so it affects also WILPF, I think, in having not a huge staff anymore and have to be very focused. But I think particularly in the Arab region, we have good statements, and I assume that the Secretariat will help you to have access to the UN. So that's from my side, and thank you, and good to see you in good mood and in an active spirit when you go to Africa now soon. So good luck.
I'm working with Sudanese women journalists.
Ah, great. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you for this first part. And the second part is my, dear Gulnara, friend, colleague since years, just a little bit, some points of your history before I have the questions for you. You were born in former Soviet Union. You studied languages, human rights, criminal law, and just to name some aspects of your educational part. So you built numerous bridges on the local level, the regional level in the Caucasus region, and on the international level, always for peace and justice. First as a deputy mayor in Yerevan, later as a rapporteur for the United Nations on modern forms of slavery, for the Council of Europe and the International Labour Organization on trafficking in human beings and forced labor. And you traveled all over the world, giving a voice to the most vulnerable, which brought you also in highly dangerous and difficult situations, and your critical gender perspective on all exploitive situation was always, and this is really a very important point, solution orientated, and always focused on an inclusive and gender sensitive societies and the role of women and young people. So the recent tragic experience with war and refugees in the Caucasus region made you again a rebel against war. And one sentence, one citation on an article that you wrote was, "My sense of responsibility, perseverance, and collective effort made me strong." So what is this strength, and in very difficult situation, and perhaps you can describe a little bit the actual challenges also in Armenia, but also in the Caucasus region.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Heidi. And thank you for all the work you do, first of all. And thank you for the award. It gave me a lot of strength. And I like the name, Rebels Against War, because, you know, unfortunately, we do not stop being rebels. Our process continues. We are pro-peace, but we have to fight every day on a daily basis to find the solutions to the problems. And we encounter so many problems in our peace movement now, with the digitalization, with fake news, with all this militarization, a lot of things that we should bring understanding and should bring, you know, and talk to people. By the way, when you were speaking about international work, we are having on the 1st and 2nd of December our 15th, 16th conference on peace, women, peace and security, which, and our award, which already awarded about 36 women from different parts of the world. And we're trying to spread peace through this process. And the conferences are becoming a big platform to discuss a very tense issues that are happening in the world, because people are coming from the different parts of the world to discuss together what we can do in this world, how we can do in this world. In Armenia, we had last time when I came to Munich to receive award, I remember how happy we were about developments in Armenia when we established it was after revolution, and we were all happy that we have a new government, and the government was, building a peace agenda, peace agenda with neighbors, peace agenda within the country, using human security as the most important element with the country, access to right. But unfortunately, being a small country within, surrounded by all authoritarian regime is not an easy task. We had two wars since. 144 days, where moved all the people out of Nagorno-Karabakh. And then the second war, which was more than, it was not a war, but it was blockade, putting 102,000 people on hunger and death. And at the end, the people had to leave the country. So it was a very, very difficult situation that you have to learn how to work in this environment, how to encourage people to see the peace as the most positive thing, the thing that they should strive even after losing so much, after losing their homes, after losing what they had, and coming to Armenia only with memories. They should learn that the peace is the only condition that they can survive. There was a lot of work to teach them. We were traveling from border communities to, to see the women camps, discussing with women, trying to start them and encourage them not to think that this is the end of life. In a new place, they cannot survive. No, give them encouragement, give them assistance, give them, hope to start their life in a new home. It was a very difficult situation because acceptance was not there. This one level was assisting women. Second level was raising awareness on the situation in Armenia. We're publishing articles, traveling around, speaking about what is happening, because nobody knew what is happening in a tiny country that is surrounded by authoritarian strong regimes, that, the only interest there was just, to finish with this, not to have a one small democratic country in the region, just, and so many helpers, so many, Israel was sending weapons. There was a unity of authoritarian regimes against the tiny country. And this was enormously difficult to explain people and to organize, peace movement. This is very interesting, but peace movement is now in Armenia a very, very different. It is peace activists are for environment, peace activists are for, free speech, peace activists are speaking about it. It goes to rights, human rights aspects, and people frame it all in a peace process. And this is important to bring all of them together and start working. Specifically, what we do, we invest in youth and women in the borders. We organize the democracy schools, bringing youth to discuss their problems and give them advice how to live in the borders where, just 500 meters, they can see Azerbaijani troops. How to live in this environment, how not to have a hatred in their hearts and continue their lives, and try to struggle against this. This is a very difficult situation, but little by little it improves. It improves, and what I'm very happy of, the government doesn't move from the democracy direction. And this was thanks to strong civil society in Armenia, that we were all the time supporting government in taking, the line of peace and democracy. This is the most important. Of course, it will be difficult now. We're facing elections very soon. We don't know how to happen, but we are trying our best not to repeat Georgia's scenario, because, we shouldn't lose this momentum. We shouldn't lose the situation.
Heidi, your mic was still off.
Thank you very much. And perhaps I admired especially also two activities that you did in the last years. One was, and this is an important issue also for WILPF and the discussion on the Women, Peace and Security agenda. You were an example for taking the ownership somehow of developing a new national action plan. This is the opposite what happens in many of the other countries. And this, perhaps you can say a word on this. And the second thing is the House for Women in Matuni, that you are trying to open a house to bring these spaces for women. Just very shortly, perhaps.
Absolutely. About plan of action, it is a very, very interesting process because, for the first time, government assigned us to write plan of action. And this was enormously inclusive. Sometimes you want to build democracy, but sometimes you say, goodness, how I'm going to deal with all of this? Because we trained women all around the country and asked them to send us, proposals. And this was about 300 pages of proposals. How to put all of the 300 pages into one document. And this was very interesting discussion. This became also a discussion, why not this and why we are going to put this in? Because we explained them the essence of the document and what we're putting. You cannot put everything into one document. There are other resolutions, other conventions. So this is about war and peace and about women's role in peace process. That's why we have to bring this. So it was, we have chosen 5 areas. First of all, the area was about, of course, refugees, displaced people, and the ones who have been lost during the war. Second was about promotion of women. And the most important was establishing human security aspects in army and in defense sector. Third was diaspora. Armenia, through the genocide, Armenia has a very big diaspora all around the world. And it is extremely important to send a peace message through diaspora and teach diaspora that they have to be thinking in a different way, similarly with us. That was important again. And then the issue of climate change. Of course, we have recently we had a big flood, and women lost a lot of lands, and this is critically important again for Armenia. And the last one, cybercrime, because during the war, women have been threatened very much by Azerbaijanians. The bodies of women who have been killed and mutilated have been put on a website and and sent to women in communities to threaten them. Or women were said that if they do not take off their clothing and photograph their brothers and fathers are in Azerbaijan.
Okay,
So that was the reason we took this cybercrime also in that. But the basic element is intersectionality. The second element is, that it covers all of the element. And as I said, communication with all other, and mainstreaming plan of action, ideas through entire other documents and other.
I stop you here.
Yes,
I know
Martuni.
you could talk a lot more, and it would be interesting, but we will continue somehow this debate. The last thing was mentioning communication, and this is the direct link that I give the floor then to Mariana and Olena.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Gulnara. And yeah, I will continue with you, Olena. Just very briefly in the beginning, I'm in the library, my university, and the light is switching off sometimes just randomly. If I'm, then I will just quickly switch it on just for your information. Yes, I will continue with you, Olena. Olena Tsinenko is a rebel against war who has received our award 2 years ago. So Olena, you are our most recent award winner, and I had the honor to hold your laudatio 2 years ago, and I have the honor now to, say a few words about you and your commitment to feminist peace. We are very, very happy that you are here with us today as well. Olena Tsinenko was born in Kharkiv in 1975, and she describes herself as a cultural activist, media practitioner, and researcher. And as a mother of 2 daughters, she felt forced to leave her homeland due to the war in Ukraine. And at the moment, Olena is an associated member of the Institute for International Law of Peace and Armed Conflict in Bochum. Olena, even before, but also since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, you have been involved in various feminist contexts. As an expert in communication, you have been working with the Center for Gender Culture of Kharkiv since 2016 and worked in projects around gender equality and media education. And in cooperation with your organization, Kharkiv Regional Foundation Public Alternative, you organize an annual inclusion fest to preserve and strengthen gender equality, human rights, inclusion, and non-discrimination. And in Donetsk, your organization has offered workshops for sharing stories and personal experiences of war in a safe and protected space for Ukrainian women who have fled and been internally displaced. Olena, you are a rebel against war who not only analyzes but also disrupts, weaves together, creates stories of peace. and war. In a document that you gave us before the award ceremony 2 years ago, you wrote, "I want to break the silence of war memory to build peace." And truly, I think this is a rebellious, truly rebellious act in the name of peace. So I want to ask you, how did winning the Rebel Award shape your commitment against war for peace? And did the award benefit you? Did it inspire you? What role did it play in your life so far?
Thank you very much for such a warm laudatio, and yeah, I'm really touched. Yeah, in 2023, when I received, I was honored to receive this prize. I was just a woman with a suitcase, as I mentioned in a book with stories about the same women with the suitcases that we were when full-scale invasion started. Somebody of Ukrainian women were twice moved because of invasion of Russia since 2014. And yes, and what I felt that time when I was in a Verden on this ceremony, on this very event that I have never seen in my life. I provided a lot of events. I worked as a creative director, and 15 years I made events, and that was events I have never seen, and in sense of format and in sense of senses, in sense of meaning of this event. Yes, and what I felt at that time, I felt that I'm not alone. And it was very important when I was in stress, etc. Yeah, and this prize inspired me not to give up, actually, not to become just a victim who is waiting for best times. And afterward, I made a lot of discoveries. And first discovery was that the peace exists during the war. How I found out it? Story about our connection started. Connection with Heidi and colleagues and women activists in Europe started for me in 2020 when we organized and implemented roundtables with women that live near the front line in eastern regions of Ukraine, the Donetsk, Lugansk, and Kharkiv region, and we talk with women about safety. In 2024, or 2022 and 2023, we started to talk with women from Ukraine about what is peace for them. And we found out in this meeting, and Heidi was on this meeting. It was really inspiring. We find out that peace, it is not just political concept. It is something that we are living in. And women from Ukraine say that peace has to be connected. Peace is the possibility to come back home. And very many easy things that we start to value when this peace start to be destroyed, when we feel that our peace start to be destroyed. But it is not, the main thing is to preserve it, to save it, and to pronounce it, to voice it, to voice that peace, that we have this peace. And that is something that I'm doing now. In 2024, I defended my PhD about public events and cultural communication and how this cultural communication presented in media. And this method helped me a lot to analyze discourse in media that I was involved in. I was involved in monitoring war discourse. I'm not dream about monitoring war discourse ever, but my vision helped me to see peace narratives in war discourse. And I saw it, and what I can say firstly, that peace narratives and war discourse in social media, this is discourse that people provide, not just politicians. It is how people in social media discussing what is happening. It is very important for Ukrainians to talk in social media. It is part of our identity, especially after quarantine. So yeah, and I saw that firstly, peace is exists in this war discourse, and this peace give people resistance. So when we have horrible events such as like massive shelling, we have a peak of discussion on this shelling, but then this negative peak come back to at first neutral and then positive discussion how to resist our situation, how to resist our psychological stage, how to resist, how to renew, how to rebuild a small safe place in such circumstances. And this discussion, how to be resistant, how to be resilient to the situation, and how to rebuild peace in conditions that we are now. This is something that keep Ukrainians together, and that is something that help people not to fall down to negative and to be demotivated. As we know, authoritarian regimes, it is if they feel that they try to make people to be demotivated, not to resist, not to defend. Yeah, and it is something that narratives about peace, what I mean, a narrative about life, narrative is how life is going on, how we drink coffee, narrative about culture events during the war that Ukrainians provided a lot, even in Kharkiv under the shelling, even in Kiev under the shelling, they exchange it. And second thing, and it is very important for our meeting. Second thing is that these peace narratives about culture, about calendar events, about life, it provides these narratives about peace during the war. It provides by women. Women talk about volunteering, women talk about medicine, women talk about education, women discuss it. Yes, you could say that it is because women are responsible not only about for herself, but for children, for elderly people. But anyway, so we have it, and we have these voices in social media. But do we have these voices a lot on political level? Not so much. And we see that in politics, that presence in politics of women of Ukraine is decreasing now. And then what we can do? How we can provide peace narrative, not only micro level, but to meso level and to macro level of politics. And that is something that I'm doing now as postdoc in Bochum University in Institute of Law of Peace and Conflict. I'm making research on strategies, how to invent, how to provide peace meaning streaming. It is a quite interesting task because we need to find best practices of providing peace meaning streaming, and in discourse of war we can see it, and then we can we need to think about ethics of it, because anyway, if you provide something, you can have some specificity of this provision, and you need to have some ethics of this, because media works in not in a just connectivity logic, but in logic how media works, and powerful logic. Social media works with algorithm logics, and we need to provide not only ideas of the strategies, but we need to provide literacy, how people, help people to understand how work this online environment, and how we can be voiced, and how we can be voiced to be heard with our peace understanding that based on human rights concepts such as dignity, such as justice, and freedom. Yeah, maybe I will stop in this moment. Thank you for attention.
Thank you so much, Olena, for sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, the richness of all our different approaches and experience is beyond a format of a webinar, but thank you for that. And as we have heard from Efi Latsudi, who has got one of the awards in a very specific, tragic domain of struggling for refugees in Greece. She is seriously ill, and therefore Madita, who made the laudatory speech when she got the award, will say us some words on Efi.
Thank you so much, Heidi, and thanks everyone, first of all, for being with us and for sharing their insight into their work. It's a great honor to hear from every one of you. So I have the honor to speak about Efi's work tonight. And it's really sad that she can't be here today to share what she's been doing since we've awarded her the prize in 2021. So to give you a little bit of background, Efi Latsudi is a human rights activist and psychologist, and she was born in Athens, but shifted to Lesbos in 2005. And she's been focusing on migration and the deadly passage of the Mediterranean Sea ever since, and has really been a great contributor to solidarity structures and places of, well, security basically for migrants on the island of Lesbos, but also in other places. And she received the UN's Nansen Refugee Award, I think in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, by the UN's High Commissioner for Refugees. So her work was recognized by UN bodies prior to our award, but we awarded her the prize in 2021. And that was at a time where she was actually able to come with her colleagues. She was able to come to Verden, which was a very special time because, as all of you remember, 2021 was still the height of the COVID pandemic. But for some reason, we managed, and a lot of people actually also came to Verden, to the massive cathedral. For those of you who had the chance to be there, it's a very impressive and impressionable kind of environment to have this award. So here's also a shout out to the people in Verden actually who have kept organizing these events with us together, because it's such a special place actually to have these award series to be taking place. And I had the honor to speak in front and for her basically, and we honored her work on this day due to her relentless efforts in the field of migration, but also in showing people that the slow violence, so the progressing slow violence of the EU's border regime that is continuing until this day, but also the massive impact it keeps having on everyday lives of people, basically not only in Europe, not only in Lesbos, obviously, but really into other continents in this world, including Asia, the African continent, and other places in the world. So what she has been doing is she's been drawing attention to the deadliness of the EU border regime, the circumstances under which the EU and its multiple bodies and of cooperation, basically other international organizations, are actually complicit in creating these very hostile and very deadly areas and psychologically damaging spaces for migrant women, migrant refugees, men and children. And she's been relentless in this work. And I remember speaking to her about all of these topics. And what really impressed me was her power, or the way that she was actually still able to continue her work, because this work is something that keeps, going, or keeps disappearing actually from public attention. Only sometimes you get to hear about maybe some boat that crashed, or, that there was an accident on the Mediterranean Sea. But this constant criminalization and actually also militarization of the EU border regime, and the criminalization of seeking refuge has been going on, and it's gotten worse until this day. We have so many wars going on in this world right now. We have a massive humanitarian crisis in Sudan going on right now. And with and all of these other places that we've also talked about right now, migration is always kind of inscribed into conflict and war, right? The reason why people leave is very often as conflict and war. So this is one of the reason, because she created the center, or the organization co-founded it, Lesbos Solidarity. And also she created this big camp, which was called Pikba Camp, which unfortunately was shut down by the Greek authorities at some point, because they were not allowed to practice there anymore. And Pikba was a place, it was basically a safe haven of solidarity, of creativity, of psychological assistance, and basically for a space for people to just be and to breathe. And it was so important at that time that people could actually just rest there and take some time. I remember her showing us videos of these spaces, and it really had this warm kind of atmosphere where people could just be together and, yeah, actually take a rest from this. And unfortunately, I couldn't find what I was looking for earlier on, but the organization Lesbos Solidarity, they made small pouches of the life vests that people came with to Lesbos from the Mediterranean Sea. So these were small things that she brought to show us. And as I was mentioning before, 2021, 22 was a very specific time during COVID, but a good 1.5 years after, I had another conversation with her in 2022 in March. And this was right after the full invasion of Ukraine. And she was telling me that her work has been impacted by this war indirectly, because organizations like the IOM or other organizations that focused on migration and refugees were actually pulled away from Lesbos and other Greek islands so that they can support the refugees coming from Ukraine. And this is something this stayed with me, because I remember thinking about this, how precarious and how underfunded civil society work and also international organizations actually are. And right now we're facing a time where money has been drawn away from this even more. So let me move on to what I know, what she's doing today. She's still working with Lesbos Solidarity, and she very recently gave an interview on the new detention center, which the EU has been built, the one in Vastria. And she called it out in an interview. I'm going to send you the podcast that she's recorded, and also an article which you guys can look at later on, which she titled, so both of this she titled, which with the slogan "out of sight, out of mind," and this is what she's been calling the EU and the EU Commission out for, is that this is kind of the strategy that the EU border regime is functioning under. If you don't see the people that are actually coming to Europe, it's out of everyone's mind, right? And this detention center was built next to a landfill. There's no access to any health infrastructure or any social infrastructure, basically. It's just a place to keep people in detention. And with the new pact on migration and refugees which is not so new anymore because it was put in place in 2020, we can actually see these processes of structural inclusion, structural exclusion, racist policies on migration, and the further criminalization of migration moving forward. So what was actually, to end on a positive note, because this is still a topic that we're facing, and we can't, it's unfathomable at some point to actually think about that this is taking place every day, and that the EU is complicit in this violent border regime and actually has been furthering its policies instead of, pulling it back and making it more humane. So to end on a more positive note, that time when Efi received the prize, she also had the opportunity to tour Germany and go to different cities, including Berlin, Frankfurt, Hamburg, if I'm not mistaken, and Munich also. And she was able to talk to a lot of activists and people from other refugee and migration organizations. She actually got a lot of press awareness also, so a lot of press attention was given to her and her tour also. So it was a very special thing that happened at that time. And we were very grateful to have her. And apart from her absolutely relentless work, she's also a very kind person, and it was really fun to be around her. So I was really glad to honor her in this way that time, and also happy to have given you a little bit of insight on her. And let's all hope for her speedy recovery. And I'm going to put the links into the chat box so that you can check it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I think we all join your wishes to Efi, and we will send her the recorded way of this webinar. Thank you both for this. And the last award winner is also not present, but she sent us today a video, and it's Rasha Shaum from Yemen. She is also extremely active in a strongly patriarchal region, and where even children are recruited to the military, and she has worked to provide basic services to population, including strengthening social cohesion, as we heard also from others, collective food cultivation, small enterprises, but her commitment on humanitarian work for refugees, also in Lebanon and Jordan, was at the end not enough. And then she decided to devote her entire life to peace processes. And this is where she still is very much involved on psychological support, land rights, empowerment trainings, and so let us hear Rasha in the video.
I hope you can see the video. You can, right? Okay, I'm gonna play it.
Hello, my name is Rasha Jarhoum, and I'm honored to be a recipient of the Anita Augspurg Rebels Against War Award. I was the recipient in 2019, and I received the award in a very nice ceremony in Verden. So thank you. I am very grateful for that award. It has supported my personal career, but also I felt appreciated for the efforts I am doing. Since the award, my organization was able to grow its credibility, and we were able to gain more funds to do our work. We have been able to support more than 100 human rights defenders, women human rights defenders, to relocate to safety, to be released from arbitrary detention. And we have worked on facilitating dialogue with different community members in Yemen, more than 1,000 people have contributed to the Feminist Peace Roadmap, which is a guiding framework for peace process. It has outcomes and recommendations that can be integrated directly in any peace agreement. And through the Feminist Peace Roadmap, we were able to influence the intra-Yemeni talks that took place in 2022. At least 35 outcomes from the Feminist Peace Roadmap was included. Since the award, my organization was able to obtain ECOSOC status with the UN and also observer status with the UN FCCC on climate change. We were able to open spaces for women human rights defenders from Yemen to be in the Human Rights Council, in the UN Security Council, and in the COP that is negotiating issues related to climate change. Our influence has increased, our reach has increased. We were able to support more women, peace builders and human rights defenders. And we are continuing this work even amid the current global backlash against women's rights and equality. We still continue these efforts and really grateful for the award and the support that I have received. And I was hoping to be in person, but however, and at the time the webinar will be happening, I will be heading to convening for feminist peace in Yemen and the Middle East and North Africa. So I thank you. I am so grateful for that honor, and I hope that we meet again in different spaces. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
This was the tour of these rebels against war. We thought we would open the floor to questions, but as we are already 1 hour together, I would say if you have a specific question or a comment also from the awardees to each other or from other participants, then please feel free to do so. But I think we can stop the recording now. And if you have already so many thoughts about what we could all do as rebels against war, then it's also fine. Just let me see if someone would like to still take the floor.